A little bit about Medhost, almost 35 years, end-to-end community care space enterprise solution. So literally ED from the day you could walk in the emergency room all the way to operation, all the way to patient billing, claims management. So if you think about a normal non-healthcare business sort of end-to-end enterprise, if you will, with a few add-ons for specialties. And that includes all the clinical stuff, so pharmacy, radiology, all that kind of stuff, right? So that's Medhost. We also are dabbling in consumer engagement and the portal business and helping community hospitals outreach to their patients. So a little bit about our history with KeyedIn. So main business purposes: project management, resource management, revenue forecasting, and revenue recognition. So this is where the tie-in to Intact comes in and why it's important. 200 users, 3 years we've been live. We're running 6.3 now. We have really evolved into using the insights and the dashboards quite a bit, which I'll show you some of in a minute. Top projects, financials, forecasting tabs, something we just recently added, activation tracking, which for us are go-lives. Lessons learned. We've now incorporated our lessons learned, which was sort of offline, into KeyedIn, which sort of an interesting application of your stuff. And then custom reports, which Kevin and team have been helpful with, and we also do a daily backup that we have KeyedIn do for us, and then we'll show you how we use that to generate not quite real time, but within 24 hours, real-time data for Power BI, for dashboards for the management team. Our project mix is mostly chargeable projects. We do not have partners. We implement our own software. We have a team of about 100 people that do that for a living. We recently onboarded our education department, which is both internal and customer education for all their projects. So they comprise that purple wedge of the internal projects. So I met Kevin about 3.5 years ago, and we had Baseline, which was an old sort of add-on to the Force.com platform, and it was not working for the company, and that's how I got brought in to sort of help figure out this problem. It had become too customized. The current systems team was just too amenable to everything everybody wanted. It was not easy to use. PM started circumventing the tool and were using Microsoft Project on their own. There was a huge disconnect between the task plans and actually resource schedules and resource allocations. The whole resource scheduling process was offline in Excel. They had to enter time in Baseline. They also had to enter time in our accounting system for billing 10 Rocks. We were milestone based at the time, which was a real painful process I'll talk about a little bit in a minute. A lot of cost to build that thing, and then because it had become so custom, we didn't have anybody in-house that could actually maintain the darn thing, so we were making some IT consultant very wealthy. I think he built a second home on a lake in Tennessee because of this. God bless him. And then one of the key points not integrated to our accounting system, which was Intact. Okay, so why did we choose KeyedIn? Well, if you go back to that slide and then look at this slide, easy to use. We actually drove Kevin crazy. We used that trial version for, 60 days, 75 days, a long time. Project and resource management were linked. Came with a sort of vanilla integration Intact. Eliminated the dual time entry. All of our time entry for the implementation side of the business is done in KeyedIn and retained there. We don't even send it to Intact except in a few instances. Kevin's been through those trials with us as well. That was more of an Intact problem, but significant cost savings, and LBMC is our local partner here in Brentwood, and they recommended that we talk to KeyedIn after we had talked to Clarion, and we're looking at Microsoft Project Server and a bunch of those other logos down there in the bottom, which I was told not to say out loud. Okay. So this is what I call the crawl, walk, run chart. We kicked off on June 15th. We went live on October 15th. So I don't know if there's any prospective customers in here, but let me remind you that's about 90 days with 400 active projects at that time. It was a lot, close to 1,000, right? Okay. So we had a ton of active projects going. We did this thing very, very quickly, right? And so less than 4 months to go live. And the sort of the gray ones are the ones where we were really sort of crawling and starting to walk, and a lot of help from KeyedIn, right? The V6 upgrade was huge for us, and I'll show you why in a minute. And then we worked with Leanne and some of the folks at KeyedIn to get us this forecast percentage of completion custom report. So one of the big things that you'll see here is that in the big change that we made when we implemented KeyedIn is we went from milestone-based accounting for projects and revenue recognition to percentage of completion. And that's a big deal because if one task was left on a milestone, you couldn't check that milestone, you couldn't bill that customer. Now we say, oh, we're 62% done. We were 50% done last month, so your bill is 12%. The rest of the ones that are in a little bit darker bold there are things we've done mostly on our own, with Kevin whispering in our ear occasionally, but we have a really good systems admin, and he's really moved us into what we would like to think is a fairly sophisticated use of the product at this point, 3.5 years in. Portfolio forecasting tabs were added in May of 17. We added a URL link to our contracts so that the PMs didn't have to go to Spring CM to see the contracts. They literally could click it within this tool. My objective with every user group I have is whatever your day-to-day tool is, I want you to be able to do as much as possible in that tool. I don't want multiple screens, multiple tabs. So with this group, we were really all about how much can we put in KeyedIn, and we kept pressing and pushing, and you'll see some of our production, our requests and feature requests. And then we did the activate, we launched a dashboard in December of 17th, and now we're down from portfolio forecasting down to project forecasting. So it's a big difference. Portfolio is a bunch of projects. Now we're down to individual project forecasting. And that, as you can see, was really done in only about the last 15 months. So that's what we look like. I love that. I call this the spaghetti chart. But you can see that we're a Force.com centric company at this point. We run CRM, CPQ, Service Cloud. We have Jira. Obviously, we're a software development company, so that's our development tool. We use Adobe EchoSign for the signature piece, Spring CM for the repository and the CLM stuff. And then there's Intact and Exponent up there on the top with Concur down there. And magically, they actually do all talk to each other. So there's the slide that Jay talked about. So this is my world, right? I don't own Intact from a systems ownership perspective, but I own it with my partner, Matthew, so the two of us own this. So this is really what makes our business run from an operations perspective, right? So this is the entire Salesforce project platform, as well as Spring CM, which is essentially riding on the Force.com platform along with KeyedIn and then Intact. I'm not going to go through all the integrations, but what I will point out here is that the only time that actually ends up in Intact from KeyedIn is the T&M projects, which we bill on a time and material, but we're a fixed fee shop, and we were trying to send all this time data to Intact, and it just was silly. It was replication of data, it didn't make any sense, and Intact couldn't handle it, quite frankly. It wasn't a KeyedIn issue, so we stopped all that madness, and KeyedIn is essentially the record, the system of record for the timekeeping now for that group of people. And as you can see the contract data going to KeyedIn, and you see project number. So we have it built in that the actual project is created through this integration. So the project just shows up to our implementation team. Based on a closed won deal, if it has any service project, we've built the intelligence in that it knows if it has that kind of product code, it creates a project for us. So, success story so far. So 50% reduction in the cost of running the system, pretty significant. That's how I ended up with this permanent job in Nashville. 12% improvement in revenue forecast. I know, Robbie, you want me to talk more about that. V6 upgrade was a game changer for us. That's when the light bulb went off. You know, when you're in a job or when you're doing something and you're just sort of going through the motions, you're like, yeah, this is my job, yeah, but whatever. I remember when I was a young auditor at Price Waterhouse, and then one day I was like, oh, yeah, that's what we're supposed to do. We're actually supposed to verify the accuracy of this stuff, not just check a bunch. Like there's a day when stuff just, the light bulb goes off, and for us it was really right after this V6 upgrade because, you know, we were very hesitant about going there, and then once we did, you know, you'll sort of see some of the things we've done. So this should really say 12% improvement in forecast accuracy. 20%, so think about that as plus or minus 20%, because so that's a pretty wide band of, so you know, we used to go into a room before we'd give this forecast to our CFO, and I'd always coach my VP of operations to say, yeah, I think we should go a little bit lower than what we're forecasting. And so for the first 6 months that we did this, we always hit the forecast. And then finally my buddy Ken Mish, who's our CFO, who I've known for a long time, 30 plus years, he'd say, Sanders, stop bullshitting me, you know? like I appreciate the under-promise, over-deliver concept that you're approaching here, but how about if we get a little bit more accurate? So how did we get there, right? And this is the story. First we did the custom forecast report in March of 17, and it helped us, right? You could see that. And then we went to the portfolio forecasting tabs where we have three in the PMO, we have 3 project management managers. So 1 for technical projects, 2 for the enterprise projects, and we made available to their visually their portfolio projects to say, hey, you got who's assigned, do we have under assignment of resources? We're really trying to drive toward that percentage of completion accuracy, because that's what accounting cared about, that's what we get to bill on. So that was a big improvement, but we then had, you know, people got busy, lost focus on it. So then we refocused on that and we took it to the next level. So from portfolio forecasting, we took it down to individual project forecasting. And we have a tab in there for all the project managers that they're responsible now. And we've driven it, you know, it's one of those things where it's all, I was talking to somebody else, it's all about execution in the end, right? You have a great strategy, but if you can't execute. So we thought we were making progress. That first dip was like, oh good, we're getting there. And then we had one that we were way under and then one we were way over. And so that made a big difference. So that's how we were able to drive it. And then just that literally every week, every Friday at 1 o'clock, we go through all this stuff, right? So some of it's management too. So why was V6 upgrade a game changer for us? Well, it really allowed us to go crazy with these data boxes and these widgets, right? So we have red, green, yellow stuff. We drop down on, you click on those boxes and they give you a list. Guess what? No more reports. People hate reports. Like if you're a Salesforce user and you got to run a report, don't you just hate that? Like, okay, I got to go to my admin or I got to go through the list and pick the report that I want, and then I got to look at it, and then if I want to really do something with it, I got to do the printable view or export it, blah, blah, blah. Same thing with you guys, right? I mean, you got to have these reports. If you click on that 8 will give you the list of the 8 that are out of whack. Boom, right there. They could act on them. They could literally, from the tool, fix them, right? That was a game changer for us. And the widgets down below are just a couple of illustrative examples. And you can click on those 3 times, and they will literally get you into the real data, right? And you could fix it real time. So this was huge. Dashboards, right? So in the end, right, it's about taking information, putting it into a form that someone can act upon it, right? That's what management's all about, and that's really what my job is to get this to the point where my VP of implementations can open his instance of KeyedIn and have the dashboards that he needs and drill down to the level that he needs. And that's why we've been able to drive this business from 20% margin to 40% margin over the last 2 years, right? Some of it's mix of work, so it's not, you know, we all have some part of the success, right? But this is a big part of it, right? So we use dashboards for unassigned projects, unapproved project time, project count by PM, lessons learned, and planned and year-to-date go-lives. This is just one of them with our go-lives based on project type. So, and then last but not least, I'll talk about Power BI and how we're using that. Kevin's promising better things to come, so that'll be good because we sort of cheat by using Microsoft 365 to share this stuff without having to spend a lot of money on Power BI licenses. But we take our data every night, we drop it down and put it into SQL Server, we do the queries, and then we run it over to BI. And so any part of the management team or project manager or project management owner can go through and get this data. It's not live, real time, but it's 24 hours old at best. So non-built. So this is how Doug, our VP of Operations management team, has gotten really better at managing projects, managing people, and all that kind of stuff. So just a little bit of a, you know, we talked about this earlier when we met, but you know, these guys will listen to you, believe it or not. We have a very, what's the right word? Enthusiastic systems administrator, and he is always thinking about this stuff. He's really actually very, very good at what he does. Thank God we have a non-solicitation clause, I'm sure, somewhere in our contract, because Charles is amazing, right? And some of these guys have met him too, but he just thinks about this stuff. I mean, God bless him. But so we've actually had 4 of our feature requests actually make it into production, into releases, and a couple more scheduled for release. And he does occasionally get sad when he sees the, you know, will not implement thing. Couple lessons learned as a final slide. Don't try to boil the ocean. I think we actually, only because I'm old enough and have been through enough wars, we did actually do the crawl, walk, run, which we're trying to do with CPQ, Steelbrick, and a couple others, not as fast as we've done here. Ask for help. Governance matters. It really does. I mean, we have a really good governance group here. We talk about the big stuff, not the little stuff, and we have really, you know, again, raised our level of sophistication here. Over-communicate changes and how-tos. We've done a lot of videos, a lot of wiki articles, making people responsible for updating things, having a dedicated, says you can't do this, honestly. At a certain level, you have to have someone that lives and breathes this stuff. Thankfully, Charles is that guy for us. And last, didn't make the slide, but our success really over time has been based on a really good super user group. We have a great bunch of project managers and just implementation folks that use the tool every day, and we meet with them monthly to get ideas and stuff like that. So.